And of my four that I'm showing, this might be my favorite one.
DorkLair!
Welcome to another DorkLair action figure review. Today I'm taking a look at the Mythic Legions Furious 4. This is the second of the LegionsCon 2-packs. This one was out on day 2 of the event. This was $100 for 2 figures, so what you're looking at is 2-packs here with the various figure combinations going on to make the My Wife Is Going to Kill Me 4 tribute figures. And if you haven't heard of My Wife Is Going to Kill Me, it is a hilarious podcast. Definitely not for the kids, but just an awesome, great group of guys. And it is just a great listen. You can listen to it on like iTunes, or you can watch their YouTube channel. And I'll put the link in the description below for those guys. And this set right here is an absolute dream for anyone who's into the pop and swaps, the kit bashes, the LBCs, the Lazy Boy customs. This is just a fantastic set. All the different parts are toned together so that you can just mix and match like crazy. They're they're like Fury Clan, so they're definitely made to mix in with the Fury Clan orc. And so that's, another one you could add to the mix, especially if you want to put that cat head on another different figure. But I love this set. And I know I raved about the first exclusive, and that's cool. But to me, as somebody who does love that pop and swap kind of thing, this set just speaks to me in so many ways. And I will later in the show have at least, I think, 4 different swaps that I did with these figures. So be on the lookout for those. But for now, let's get into this review. Next up, a quick look at the packaging. It's a convention exclusive box, so it's a lot more fancy than your typical box. And then on this side, we have some Mythic Legions lore. Amazing art by Nate Barch on the back. And then we have all the bios over here. And I do highly recommend spending some time reading them if you have the chance, because they are absolutely hilarious, especially if you are familiar with these guys from the My Wife Is Going to Kill Me podcast. Next up, let's get a look at the details on the Furious 4. And just note that from here out, I will attempt to treat this like the 2-pack that it is, so you get a real sense of exactly what's in the box, rather than seeing 4 figures, which could be a little, difficult to tell what you get. And speaking of what you get, if you are looking to pick this up, there will be a very limited supply on sale November 11th at 12 Eastern Time on LegionsShop.com. But that supply is going to go really quick. It's really intended for people who didn't make it to the convention and couldn't get the figure there. However, if that does sell out, don't worry too much. There's going to be a standard release of these figures. The only thing that it'll be missing is this cat head right here. So you're getting 90% of the stuff at a much cheaper price. It won't be the con exclusive price. It'll be the usual $37 per figure rather than $100 for the 2-pack. So, don't worry too much if you miss it. I think the value is really in the standard issue anyway. But I do love the set. I think the sculpt, the paint, the details, all the parts they chose are really cool, really fantastic choices. And let's start it off with a look at the Praetorian figure. So you have Praetorian, whose head is intended to be swapped out with Uwit. So we have the bull Praetorian, and then you have the head sculpt. That's the orc, the Vorthog head sculpt, and that's swappable here to make basically Jeremy DeWitt's character, or to make Pete McCarthy's character. So you got your 2 different versions of this. And then here's the Uwit version of the figure. And then the second figure that comes in the pack is this one. That is the Travis Bowles, the skeleton here called Pelvicus. And you swap out the head and a couple little parts and things. And then you have the Lord Stephen Bachati, the Alpha character. And then getting in for a close-up of the Praetorian head sculpt and these shoulder pauldrons. I do love that they went with that Fury Orc paint scheme on the armor, so you could totally just swap these in with Fury Orc parts and they mix and match perfectly. You have the Vorthog torso, the Vorthog big aggressive orc Arethyr wave, shoulder pauldrons, and then you have this big thick collar piece, which is a separate item. And just taking a look at the back again, a lot of Vorthog stuff here. Vorthog's skirt that is shared with a couple figures. It's the Magnus skirt as well. Classic barbarian loincloth. You have the cloth That really premiered just recently in the Alethea wave and was also on the Headless Horseman Alethea wave gauntlets here. Got the unarmored hands. And yeah, very cool. I just love all the weathering on there. New greaves from Alethea wave. And then you've got to look at the classic hooves right there. Those can be swapped out for feet on this particular figure. And he's got a tail, which I think this is new. I think this particular tail is a new sculpt, if I remember correctly. So there's a close-up of the Praetorian figure, and you can pop the shoulder pauldrons off, pop the head and collar off, put the orc head on there, and you've got the Uwit figure. And I popped those on there, and just a quick close-up of the Uwit head sculpt right there. I love that. I think this head looks great in red. It completely transforms the look. It's much more demon-like, obviously, in red. And then here next we have Pelvicus, and you can take the Bachati head and swap that Spartan head on there to make the alpha character. And I do love that they're using a lot of these new parts here. One of my favorite things about this set are these red arms, these glossy crimson red arms with the glossy black accent colors throughout. I do love how these pauldrons are shiny black. These are the pauldrons from Valak. You have the torso from Krotos. You get the nice red straps. I like that. That reminds me of the Black Knight, which that will come up a little bit later. And the awesome usage of that deluxe Night Builder skeleton head sculpt with the drop-down visor. Just brutal looking head sculpt. Fantastic stuff right here. Articulated jaw as well. And then we have the skirt here that matches the chest piece and the classic knight's loincloth. The legs to match the arms and the heroic style knight gauntlets and greaves from the classic figures. And yeah, and I'll just a quick look at the back of the figure. And then here's a close-up of the Lord Bachati, the alpha head sculpt. And I do love that they brought this head, which hasn't had this kind of paint job on it, but they brought that Spartan head in and put that very brutal, weathered, almost like iron look to it, and the red plume across the top there. Next up, let's take a look at these guys next to a few other figures. First, on the left, we have a 1.0 style figure, like the set is. This is a 1.0 style figure set. On the left is Baron Voligar 2, and then on the right is his mom, Alethea, from the Vampire Wave. And then here they are with a couple Mezco figures, Conan on the left and Batman on the right. Finally, on the left, we have the Masterverse Skeletor from the San Diego Comic-Con 2-pack, and on the right, we have Thulsa Doom from Super 7 Ultimates. Okay, let's get into the accessories, and in addition to what you already saw on the figure, like the pauldrons and the neck pieces and stuff, we have a shield right here. Pretty simple, basic silver gray type shield. And we have a very nicely painted cleaver style sword here. You can see the blade, and even these parts down here are different colors, and you have the black handle. And then another basic sword, but the paint scheme is nice. It's not your simple monocolored builder type sword. This is very nicely painted and weathered. And then we do have a long spear right here, very long weapon with a silver tip and a black handle. A mace. I believe this is called the dwarf mace, maybe. But again, same scheme, black handle, weathered, very like gunmetal gray color. And then we have the like shaman staff type thing that came with Krotos. This topper can be removed. And the Jaguelian head and tail that you can use to swap on to make a fifth character. And it does come with 2 of the leather straps. There's one on the figure that you saw earlier, and then this additional strap. And an extra pair of feet so that you can turn the Praetorian bull character, remove the hooves, and turn it into the Uwit orc character. And it does have an extra pair of hands. So when all together, you have like 2 of this style hand, a left and a right, action open gripping hand, and then you have a standard gripping hand, 2 of these left and right. And there is a cape here that I don't really mess around with too much. It does have some nice weathering, like it's kind of like goes from clean to dirty at the bottom, but I'm at the point where I don't really mess with these old capes too much because they seem so out of place now compared to the new capes that are wired and multiple like stitchings and things, and these just feel so cheap that I don't bother with these much anymore. So I apologize to anybody who wanted to see this on the figure. I just don't care enough to put it on there. And it does have the classic set of back adapters. And then for articulation, we'll start off with the Praetorian figure. And I just want to kind of do it as Praetorian first so you can see the limitations of the bullhead, and then I'll show you kind of the rest of the articulation after. So there's definitely a lot of limitations going on. Like it can look up a decent amount, but it's not going to go down any further than this because the collar piece here is just going to get in the way. You can remove that though if you want to go for the collarless look. And then these shoulder pauldrons are also going to prevent things from moving because basically, usually you can swing these pauldrons up a little bit, but because this collar is here, there's nowhere for them to go. So if you want Torian to swing his arms all the way out, you're going to maybe want to have him without the shoulder pauldrons or perhaps without the collar piece. So that collar piece really does limit things quite a bit for articulation. But other than that, it has basically your standard Mythic Legions 1.0 style articulation. And then the other thing is that the tail here can move around just a little bit. You can definitely twist it to have it pointing down or pointing up. And then there's a little bit of wiggle room. It's pegged in on a ball joint, just like that. For the hooves, they do move pretty much like the other feet, where you can hinge them up and down, and then you can do a little bit of an ankle rocker there to get them into like the wider stance positions, and they twist as well. And for the rest of the articulation on this figure, I'll do it in the Uwit formation so that you can kind of get the better range here. Orchid can look up quite a bit. His beard gets in the way of looking down, kinda, so he's not gonna look down very much, but you can cock his head side to side, and then it can twist as well. Of course, that collar is gonna get in the way a little bit. His arm can swing up just a little bit past the T-pose. You can twist it all the way around, hinge at the elbow, and I do feel like this particular clothed arm has a little more range. Like I feel like the older figures only got to like there, like the bare arms kind of only get to there, but then this one can get a little bit past 90 degrees. You can twist at the elbow, twist at the gauntlet, twist at the wrist, and then there's a horizontal hinge as well. Standard 1.0 waist where you have that ball joint in there. And now this torso is pretty thick up front, so it doesn't have a ton of crunch forward, but you get a little bit that way and then a little back. You can twist it and it can cock side to side a tiny bit. But between this torso and this belt, I think they just kind of get in each other's way, and it's just a little bit more limited than some of the other torsos. Leg, you can kick forward, kick back, twist at the top of the leg. There's a single hinge knee. You can twist it at the bottom of the knee. Nice ankle rocker right here. Foot can point down, foot can point up, and can twist all the way around. And then for the second figure, Pelvicus / Lord Bachati, you don't really need to see the way both of those move because they're very, very similar. There's not much difference. It's just the head, and they move pretty much the same. So you got to twist at the head. You can twist it all the way around. Can look down a little bit, can look just a little bit up. This gets in the way. It's a similar situation with the other head sculpt. This does have the articulated jaw and the articulated mask there, and you can kind of cock it side to side. So a lot of good expressive range of motion in that neck. You can hinge the shoulder pauldrons. The arm can hinge up to a T-pose. The older arms I feel like are a little bit less range than the newer arms, so those can only come out to there. They can spin all the way around if you don't have the pauldrons on there. Single jointed elbow, and this is kind of what I was talking about. Those older arms don't have quite the same range, but you do have that gauntlet twist there, and you do have the twist at the hand and the horizontal hinge. And this does have the newer torso, and I feel like this gets a lot of good range here. It's not as big and thick as that Vorthog torso, so you get a nice range of twisting and bending and hunching over. Got the older thighs, the leg can kick forward. It can come back a little bit. I do have a little bit of looseness here in the hip. That's pretty common with Mythic Legions, especially the older sculpted legs. You have a twist at the upper thigh, single jointed knee, twist below the knee, rocker at the ankle. You have a hinge as well, and it can twist. Okay, now let's take a look at a few part swaps using the Furious 4 parts. And this first one really just uses the cat head. And this is a figure that I already had kitbashed together. This is Lord Dragul plus the arms and legs from the Fury Clan Orc. And I know most people are going to instantly just pop this head on the Fury Clan Orc. So I feel like that picture's going around quite a bit, and people might want to see how this combo looks, and I think it comes out really good. I don't have the tail in there because this particular piece I have doesn't have the tail hole, so you just have to imagine that one. But overall, I definitely like this cat head, and I think it looks really good on this Fury Dragul. Next up, I think a lot of people are just instinctively going to try to put red parts on, but I really from the beginning thought this gray torso was going to look great on the Lord Bachati, the Alpha, just creating sort of like this gladiator type character. This is the torso from Xenothon, and it's got like a flatter kind of look to it. It's not really glossy, so it's like a matte finish, and then that matte gray contrasted with the shiny reds. And I really love the finish on the helmet here. I initially thought the Pelvicus head was going to be my favorite, but I'm starting to think this might be my favorite head. But yeah, this is a really cool looking gladiator style character using the Alpha and Xenothon. Here we have the Black Knight mixed with the Pelvicus Bachati figure. This is really, I think, tied together by the glossiness of the Black Knight and the glossiness of those red arms. I really love those red arms. It might be my favorite new part from this, like paint-wise. Just a really cool look right here. Almost makes me think Targaryen, or maybe like an evil knight, but a regal, like a nobility to it, that maybe vampires or something like that. But it's a very cool look, and this is one I may end up keeping like on the shelf like this because I love my knights. Next up is a little bit of a Christmassy vibe here. This is a kitbash that kind of was inspired by a conversation I had with my kitbash buddy Joe Suter, who kind of mentioned making a Santa Claus using the red sleeves and pants or whatever from the Praetorian Uit figure, and then maybe using the Magnus head. But for some reason, the Magnus head just didn't look right on the neck. I didn't have the right collar piece, and when it sits on this neck, it just sits high, and it looked a little weird. So I grabbed this one that I got at LegionsCon from Eric Miller, who is, to me, one of the best painters out there. Just absolute skilled, talented, just phenomenal human being even. But he painted up this planetary dog toy's head, and I thought it might kind of fit that vibe that Joe was kind of like talking about. But anyway, what we have here is pretty much the Headless Horseman figure with the Uit Praetorian pants and arms, like the pants and the sleeves there. And then I have the Sir Gerard pauldrons on there. So pretty cool look right here. Maybe it's not Santa Claus. Maybe it's more of like a action battle power armor Kris Kringle or something like that. And last but certainly not least, this tank of a kitbash was also inspired by conversations I had with Joe Suter, my kitbash buddy. And it's not for the faint of heart because it does use some Brother Mandibulus parts. It does use some Arethyr parts. But for the most part, the upper torso, the shoulder pauldrons, the collar piece, the skirt, the loincloth, that is all Praetorian, Uit, whatever. And then the head sculpt, the gauntlets, and the leg, like the lower legs, the boots, the greaves, whatever, those are from the Alpha slash, Pelvicus figure. And then the tricky part is the upper legs are from Brother Mandibulus and the upper arms are from Arethyr. But I mean, this really does come together well. Oh, and also the swords, because I have two sets of the Furious 4. It does use that sword. It only comes with one of that sword, so I'm using both from the two sets. But you could always use the sword and the the mace, because they have that same color, but it's kind of got this overall like almost like a stone look to it. And I gotta say, those parts match really well from Arethyr and from Brother M. And so I really do love this set. It really captures that feeling of like when I got my first one, which was the Deluxe Knight, or if you had the Barbarian builder set, like those sets really just feel like what Mythic Legions is all about. You can just right out of the box just start popping and swapping and customizing and just getting your figure set up just the way you want it. And this set is exactly the same, except it comes with two bodies. It comes with two full figures, so a lot of fun right here. Anyway, thanks for watching my video, and until next time, may the Force be with you.